Morning, morning, good morning, good morning, 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 Jeff. Okay, I'm going to start, of course, with the learning sponsors, and then we'll. Ruven is not here this morning either. Michael apparently had to leave early, so there are two empty seats at the wooden table.
Newcomers will show up to make up for those empty seats.
Could be.
That's a perfect weather for that, right? Perfect weather.
Michael left early. Must not have been feeling well.
Mm.
Okay, learning sponsorships. A year of learning. Sarah Alpert in memory of her husband, Harav Tzvi Lipa ben Hillel, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu ben Yosef Cohen, friends of Honey Chaifetz, Dana Shoshana Bad Yusuf, friends of Jack Prince, Yaakov Yitzchak ben Shmuel Dov, friends of Sandy Davidoff, Shulamit Bat Chaim Eliyahu, friends of Judy Cohen, Yehudit Liba Bat Moshe, friends of Dr. Annette Safransky, Chana Bat Ephraim Fischel, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinzer Bat Yosef Chaim Vechava, Hanan ben Moshe Eliezer Vechana, Fesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Levi V'Tzipora, Yisur ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Vechana. Friends of Linda Katz. Friends of Linda Katz, Hinda Bat Yoshua in her beloved memory, Lee and Harvey Greenberg in memory of their parents, Esther Bat Eliezer, Yaakov Yosef ben Abraham, Sarah Rivka Bat Baruch Yehuda, Sarah ben Abraham Halevi, friends of Rochelle Ebner, Rachel Bat Moshe, Ike and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister Dr. Phyllis Pacheco, Livsha Bat Isser, a month of learning by Haran and Mel Heller in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bat Yehuda Leib, a week of learning by Isaac and Eda Novick in memory of his mother, Miriam Gil Bat Hanoch Henech, Oscar and Shelley Mole in memory of his mother, Rachel Bat Naftali, and his father, Shlomo Ben Yitzchak, Moshe and Carol Gassner in memory of his mother, Miriam Bat Yaakov Zev. Today is the 20th. There are no individual days of learning for today. Neshamas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshira, Shem Matliya, B'nai Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael Tchia, and Omar Amen.
Exactly, which is so long, page after page. Article requires like 5 pages.
This is about the longest Masechta.
It's just about the longest.
5 pages of art scroll.
Yeah. It's even longer than Baba Basra.
Baba Basra has a special situation because during the myth, I think on Daf Choktet, Rashi died, and his son, his grandson, took over.
Right.
And Rashi is a genius who was able to first in a few words what he took, his grandson took 10 words.
Right.
So that's why we have the.
Well, by the time we get used to me, I'll be gone.
Amen.
I'm here through next Sunday.
Okay. Lamed Daled is where we're going to be starting. I'm just going to go back to the top or the bottom of the previous Amud just as a quick review. Okay. The Gemara was asking the question, okay, based on Dinei Mamonot, where it says all are able to participate. Who is it? Is it the witnesses? No, says the Gemara. We find an issue that says, what about the rabbis? How do they hold? Okay, that Eid Echad Lo Ya'aneh B'Nefesh is the pasuk that they connected, right? That one single witness cannot testify, particularly in regards to a situation of death penalty. In capital case, right? Bein l'zachut, bein l'chova. Whether that was for acquittal or we said for conviction. Rabbi Yossi, then in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, says, okay, that disagreed. He said it could be for acquittal, yes, but not for conviction. Then the last line of right of Lamed Gimel, Lamed Beis. Okay, I'm just reviewing. Amar Rav Papa says Rav Papa Bechad Min Talmidim. No, we're talking about one of the students. Okay, that sat there in the gallery. Okay, okay. V'divrei Hakol. And my Talmud, the Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, we're on the top of Lamed Daled. Amud Aleph, as we're going to get started.
If one witness sees someone
No, doesn't matter. They can't, their testimony is inadequate. Okay? Gemara is going to actually touch on that topic, but that's the point. That's not sufficient. Inadequate.
could be true,
It could be true, but it's inadequate to convict them of the death penalty and put them to death.
what does he get instead?
What would he get? He may get nothing. Okay?
Says
Or
alleen
we're going to see that the Gemara has already pointed out that what do? They put him in. Remember in the Mishnayot, they put him in a cell. Okay, that's the point. Our Mishnah, we didn't get to that Mishnah yet in our Gemara, but we already passed it in Mishnah Yomi. It said that they put him in a cell. Okay, they feed him meager rations, bread and water, and after a while, then they fill his belly with barley until it. Okay. Okay. And either case.
explicitly says, lo yamut al ed echad. So
Right. That's the
even in their case, it mentioned only one.
Okay,
witness.
so what do we have now? Says the Gemara on the top of Lamed Daled. My Talmud Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. What's his reason? I know it's a long Gemara today. We'll try to move as much as we can. Okay, the Amar Krab, because we have a pasuk that says Eid Echad Lo Nefesh Lot, that one witness is not enough to bring a presentation to cause the death penalty. Lamut hu de'eno oneh. Okay, for the death penalty, Heshi, okay, he is not viable. Aval lizakot ona, but to acquit, that would be enough. V'Rabbanan, and the rabbis, would they agree with that? Amar Reish Lakish, as Reish Lakish mishum demechaze kinogea eduto. Why do we question it? Because we even with one witness, we're wondering if there's a conspiratory situation here, okay? And therefore, if that's the case, we can't always trust one witness, okay? Who's to say that I'm assuming X killed a member of the family of Y, okay? So maybe the family of Y is paying Mr. Z to testify that he saw X kill a family member of Y. Okay? That's the issue.
But we're not conscious that two people could be
We didn't say that. Mara hasn't told us that. Okay? That you have the whole concept of imzomami, right? That's the point. Okay. Let's go on. V'Rabbanan and the rabbis, v'hai lamud, in regards to the death penalty, my darashbe, how do they deal with that same pasuk? Okay, that says Eid Echad lo yaneh b'nefesh lamut. How do they darshan the pasuk? Asks the Gemara. Okay, my darshebe. How do they darshan it? Mok mele be'echad min hatalmidim. They establish it based on the fact that it's one of the students who might make a statement, right? Kidetanya, as we're taught in a Braita, Amar echad min ha'edim, if one of the witnesses says, Yesh li l'lamed alav zuchut, I have a testimony or evidence that would bring acquittal. Minayin she'en shum imlo, how do we know, says this Braita, that we don't listen to him? Talmud lomar, says the pasuk, Ed echad lo ya'aneh. One witness cannot present their issue. Minayin le'echad min talmidim. How do we know then that if one of the students, okay, she'amar yesh li lelamed alav chova, who says that if I want to teach and present a question of conviction, minayin she'ein shomin lo, How do we know we don't pay attention and listen to him? Talmud Lomar again. Okay? Echad lo ya'aneh b'nefesh lamut. One is not sufficient, I'll translate, okay, to present the situation to bring about the death penalty, to bring conviction. New piece from our Mishnah, right? Dinei nifashot hamilamed chule. Okay, in this particular case, what do we say? All right, now, it's important for us to keep in mind, Rav is going to make a statement here, and almost the rest of the Amud is going to try to clarify whether they agree with Rav's statement or whether they disagree and challenge Rav's statement. And when the Gemara comes back and says, well, this can't give us a good challenge, fine, says the Gemara. We'll bring another challenge. And fine, we can't do that. We'll bring another challenge. So remember, every time the Gemara, just an editorial example, brings the statement Ella, rather, what it's really doing is telling us, no, we're going to be bringing an alternative challenge or an alternative explanation to what we've seen before. Okay? All right, so what happens? Amar Rav says, Lo Shanu, they didn't teach this, okay, where we say Dinei Nifashot Milamed, etc. Okay? In that statement that, right, that was taught, what time could they change their mind? Is really what the Gemara is saying. Amar Lo Shanu Ela B'Shat Masa Umatan, during the time that they have their deliberations. Okay? Aval B'Shat Gemar Din, but at the time that they rendered the judgment, Milamed Zechut, one who teaches, okay, acquittal, I'm sorry, Choser Milamed Chova, may recant and teach, okay, guilt, right? May tive, but we'll challenge this with the following. Lemacharat, we know that in the case of Dinei Nefashot, what happens, right? They don't decide that same day or that same night. It goes overnight. And during the time period overnight, they're supposed to continue their debating, okay? And that's going to be finished up in the morning, okay? Which that really means it's done into the next day. So when do we say the Masa Umatan ends? It doesn't necessarily end at sundown of the day the case was originally presented. Okay? So that's the Gemara saying. L'macharat, after a while, the next day, then early they come. But, right? And what happens? Hamizakeh Omer, the one who presents acquittal, Ani mizakeh, umizakeh ani bimkomi. I have presented an argument for acquittal, and I maintain my position, okay, my view in that case. Hamechayev Omer, one who argued for a conviction. Ani hamechayev, I argued for a conviction. Umechayev ani bimkomi, and I retain my position for conviction. Now, what happens is the Gemara, Hamilamed Chova, Milamed Zechut. But at that point, when they're ready to present the final decision, one who argued for conviction, Milamed Zechut, may change his mind and argue then for acquittal. Aval, but, says the Gemara, Hamilamed Zechut, one who has argued for acquittal, is not able then to change his mind and argue for conviction. But, says the Gemara, but wait, it's the next day that we say that they render the decision. L'macharat Gemardinhu. Okay? That's our the next day. So how do you make that distinction between Masa Umatan and rendering the decision? Ulatamech, says the Gemara. And according to your view, Lemacharat masa umatan mileka. The next day, are you saying that there's no give and take on the part of the dayanim? Okay, it's not the case because the Gemara now Kikatani b'shat masa umatan. When it teaches that we're talking about the time of the deliberations, we're dealing with the question of it being on that second day. Right? Tashma, says the Brighton. Listen to the Brighton that tells us. Danin elu keneged elu. They argue or discuss, okay, or adjudicate one of these against these. Ad sheyireh echad min hamechayvin divrei hamizakin. Until one of those who argued for conviction accepts, okay, or switches, okay, to those of the quills. Ve'im ita, and if there is, litnei nami ita, then let him come and teach the other. Tana, okay, we teach azechut kamahade. But we've said that would then we would need the text to tell us that it's in regards to acquittal. One can recant, one can reverse. Okay? Achova lo kamahade. But on a conviction, one cannot reverse. That's what the Braita tells us. Tashma, more another Braita. The Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina. He says as follows: Echad min hatalmidim shezika v'meit. Let's give an example when we say about the fact that one who argued for conviction can't change. Say we have a student that argued in favor of acquittal, and then that for some reason that student died. What do? Ro'ino to ki'ilu chai va'omed b'mkomo. We consider as if he is still alive, and what happens then? Okay, he maintains his position. Okay,
So his position is just stays out there.
his position is out there, and he's still. When they take the vote, right? They would take the vote. His vote would be applied to those that are acquitted.
Is the student part of the 23?
What would happen, as we saw in a previous example of the Gemara, right? We had it in a previous daf, where a student wanted to bring a statement. He hadn't gotten smicha yet. They gave him smicha on the spot, got up, made his presentation. Rabbi Yochanan said, I waited for this kind of thing, attitude. Okay, but nevertheless, okay, it was a valid statement. And then he would be considered as if he were one of the judges. Okay? So what happens? Furthermore, says the Gemara, Nema, let us say, Ilu haya kayam, were he still alive? Hadarbe, would he have recanted, asks the Gemara. Hashta, now, miha lo hadarbe. Now, certainly, he can't recant. He can't reverse his stand. Okay? Vaha shalchu mitam the divrei Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina. And here says the Gemara, they sent a message from Eretz Yisrael, okay, according to Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina, Motzei miklal Rabbeinu, ein motzei etma. Okay, and this is then part of a challenge to what Rav said earlier. One who gives a view outside of the general group, okay, one can't change it, okay, it said. Isn't that the case? So how could Rav have said before, okay, that they don't change during the deliberation, but they may change really during deliberation, but cannot change rendering the judgment. Okay? That challenges him. Tashma, says the Brighton. Remember we learned from Mishnah, if those go to Mishnah Yomi, that you have two court, what we call stenographers. What are they writing? Right? Says the Gemara reminding us. Shnei Sofrei Dayanim, the two scribes of the judges. Omdim lifneihem, who are standing before them. Echad min hayamin, one on the right. V'echad min small, one on the left. V'kodvin divrei hamizakin, v'divrei hamechayvin. And they write down the presentations of those who argue for acquittal and those who argue for conviction, right? Bishlema divrei hamechayvin. That's understandable why they write down those who gave the conviction arguments, because we've said, right, they can't change to a, right? They could change to acquittal. Okay, lemachar, the next day, chazu tama achrina. The next day, perhaps, I'm saying, they could see a different rationale, a different view. Uba'u lema'avad, okay, halanat din. And that's the reason that we have them sleep on it, so to speak, sleep over and discuss it, the argument. Ela divrei hamizakin, but regarding those, excuse me, who present for acquittal, my tama, what's the reason that these scribes have to write down all of those, their words? Lav mishum de ichazu tama achrina. Is it not because if they see a different view or a different reason, a different argument, lechovah, for the less they think it's for conviction? Lo, no, says the Gemara. Lo mashgichinen baho. We do not pay attention. In other words, we don't listen to them, says the Gemara. Lo, no, that's not the reason. Kadei shelo yamru, in order that two shnayim ta'am echad mishnei mikraot, in order so that the two judges, okay, don't give one reason based on two different verses. Okay, what does that mean? See, the Gemara try to clarify. Is it really that's the case? Don't we find elsewhere that sometimes we have the same rationale, the same message, but one learns it out of one pasuk, and somebody else learns it out of a different pasuk? So that's what the Gemara is going to digress for a little bit and try to clarify. Okay, Kidaba'a mine, as was asked, Rabbi Asi mi Rabbi Yochanan, the following: Amru shnayim ta'am echad, mishnei mikraot. Okay, if two of the judges gave one rationale, one reason, based on two different psukim, right? Mahu, what's the situation there? Amarle, and so Rabbi Yochanan responds, Ein monin lahem ela echad. We only consider it as when they vote as if it is a single vote. Okay, it's the same explanation, same rationale. So the Gemara continues. Minahani milion, what's the basis? How can you say that? Amar Abai, says Abai, the Amar Kra, because we could say that one cites a verse, Echat, the Bar Elohim, okay, Echat Diber Elohim, Shtayim Zo Shamati, that Hashem says it as if in one statement, but the sages darshan it and come out with two different views. Okay? Ki'oz l'Elokim, because that is a strength, a certain power of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Mikra echad yotzei lekama tamid. But it would seem that one verse could present different reasons. Ve'ein tam yotzei mikama mikraot. But a single reason would not come out of multiple verses. Now, the Bei Rabbi Yishmael, in the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael, Tana, they taught it as follows to understand this. And in a moment I'll tell you to keep a note, make a note about number 26, if you're using it. Okay? Ukepatish yifotzetz seller. This is like a hammer hitting your rock. Ma patish zeh mitchalek lekama nitzotzot. The same way in doing so, a number of sparks are going to fly out in that situation. Af mikra echad yotzei lekama ta'amim. So a single pasuk can present various reasons. Hechidami ta'am echad mishnei mikraot. How is it possible to have one reason from more than one pasuk? Just as an aside, by the way, many years ago, one of the first English translations, paperback, by Ken Books, okay, was written by Nachum Glatzer, Alav Shalom, okay, who taught at Brandeis University. The name of the book was Hammer on the Rock, okay, in which he translated. It was one of the first English efforts to present Midrash and sections of the Gemara in English. Okay? Right? Okay. Amar Rav Zavid, says Rav Zavid, Kiditznan, as it's taught elsewhere. Here now, make a note, as I said, note number 26 in our scroll. Okay? Mizbeach, Mizbeach, Mikdash, et Haro'ila. Okay? Oh, Mikadesh. Right? Right. So the altar sanctifies that which is suitable or appropriate for it. Okay. Now notice the lashon of this part of the pasuk. You have the word mizbeach, and you have the word mikadesh. Okay. So the Gemara now is going to go on. Rebbe Yeshua Omer, kol hara'ui la'ishim, all that is worthy, suitable for the fires. Im Allah lo yered. If it goes on the altar, once it goes, it cannot come down. Why? Shene Amar ha'oleh al hamokdah ma'olah shehi ru'uya la'eshim im alta lo tered. Again, the pasuk telling us that goes up on the mokdah, on the area of the mizbeach, right? What it goes up. All right, and it's suitable to be burned, that goes up and does not come down. Afkol, so likewise all, shahu ra'ui la'ishim, everything that is suitable for the fires, okay, for the im Allah lo yered. Now, on the other hand, Rabban Gamliel Omer, he says as follows, kol ha'ra'ui la'mizbeach, all that is suitable for the altar, im Allah, if it goes up, lo yered, it goes not down, comes not down. Shnei Amar, as he learns, ha'oleh al hamokdah al hamizbeach. Okay, so now you have, right, you have learning the same thing from two different psukim. Doesn't that challenge what we saw before? That you could say, how could they could cite two different psukim, the judges, but have the same message, the same lesson. Okay? Ma'olah shehi ru'uya legabei mizbech, the same way it's suitable for the altar. Im alta lo tered, if it goes up, it shouldn't go down. Afkol shehu ru'ui, so all that which is suitable, la mizbeach, for the altar, im Allah lo yered. Says the Gemara, pointing this out, utravayu, my kimarbo, and the two of them, what do the two of them include? Psulim. They both have the same rationale. Okay, that it is those things that are inappropriate, unfitting. Okay. Mar ma'itela mimokda. One master brings it from the phrase mokda. Umar ma'itela mimizbeach. And the other brings it based on the verb, on the word mizbeach. Okay. Vahahatam miflag plige. No, says the Gemara, you can't say that therefore they're taking the same pasuk, two different presentations, etc. Why? Because they're arguing the katani sefer. Because the text then goes on later. Ein ben divrei Rabban Gamliel, the divrei Rabbi Yeshua, ela hadam v'hanisachim. The difference between them is really the question of libations, of water, of blood, etc. Rabban Gamliel Omer lo yerdu. Rabban Gamliel says they cannot come down. Rabbi Yeshua Omer yerdu. And according to Rabbi Yeshua, they may come down. In other words, due to the disagreement, this is not a valid example to prove that the same teaching can be based on one biblical verse. Okay? So what happens? Ella, like I said, Gemara is going to present another alternative attempt to challenge what Rav said earlier. Ella Amar Rav Papa Kedatan. As Rav Papa says according to the following. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer. He says as follows. Mitok Shene Amar, as we go to the top of the new Amud, right? Kol Hanogea B'Mizbeach Yikdash. Whoever has contact with the altar comes, whatever has contact, it can become sanctified. Shomea ani. I learned from this. Bein ra'ui, bein she'eno ra'ui. Whether it's suitable or it's not suitable. Talmud lomar. But therefore we have a braita. Kivasim. What do we mean with the lambs? Makvasim ru'uyim. The same way, right? Afkol ra'ui. The same way that they are suitable, so all that's suitable. Rabbi Akiva Omer, he says, Ola. He learns it from Ola. Ma'ola ru'uya. Okay? Af. Okay? Kol ru'ui. So the same way, again, if a burnt offering is totally suitable, then anything suitable. Utravayu. And again, both of them. Ma'ika. Mima'atu. So what then are they limiting in their argument? Things that are okay. Mar maitela mi kvasim. One brings it based on darshaning kvasim. Umar maitela me'ola, and one brings it from the ola offering. Va'amar Rav Adabar Ava. And didn't he say, 1 second, olat ha'of psula, that a total burnt offering from a bird is not suitable. Ika beinayu. That's the difference between Rabbi Akiva, okay, and his Baal Plukta. Okay, what happens, right? And namely as follows, as we go on. Man demaite la mikvasim, kvasim en aval olat ha'of lo. The one who argued based on the lambs, yes, but a total bird offering, no. Man demaite la ma'ola, but the one who brings it based on the phrase ola, okay, total burnt offering, afilu olat ha'of nami. He would say, no, that total burnt bird offering is acceptable. Okay, Ella Amar Rav Ash. So again, Ella. Okay, so again we got to a point where again that argument is not strong enough. So we come back now with a third argument that the Gemara wants to present. Amar Rav Ashi Kedatanya. Says Rashi as we teach as follows in a bright. Dam yichashev le'ishahu, dam shafach. Okay, that it is considered the spilling of blood. Right? Lerabot et hazorek, in regards to the sprinkling, spritzing the blood on the mizbeach. Okay, this includes lerabot et hazorek, includes one whose responsibility, the kohen, who's supposed to sprinkle it. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. That's the view of Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, what happens? Okay, but the question here is about throwing that blood for the altar outside of the temple. Right. That's the question. Divrei Rabbi Akiva Omer, Oy Zebach. Use the phrase Zebach. Lerabot et hazorek, to include the one who sprinkles in that manner. Utravayu, Ma'ika Marbu, and both of them, what do they come to include? Zrika, Mar Maitela Midam. Regarding this sprinkling, this throwing, one master brings it based on the word Midam Yechashev, that it is considered blood. Umar Maitela Me O Zebach. And the other brings it from the language of or a zebach, a offering. Vahama Rabbi Abba. But didn't Rabbi Abahu say here again in this example, shachat v'zarak, that it was a question of slaughtering and sprinkling, ika beinayu. That's the difference between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva in this case. Okay? Namely what? Okay? That L'divrei Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Yishmael, Eino chayav ela achad. He's only chayav to bring one chatas. Okay? We're going to see why in a moment. L'divrei Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, chayav shtayim. He would have to bring two. Okay? Why is that the case? Ha itmar Allah. But here, where he says it's olah, Amar Abai, Afla Devrei Rabbi Akiva, Nami Eino Chayav Elachad. Maybe according to Rabbi Akiva, in this particular case, we would argue that he also might hold that only one chatas. Okay, why? Okay, because of the following. All right, the Amar Kra. Why? Because the pasuk says, "Sham ta'ale olotchecha, v'sham ta'aseh." There is where you, in other words, within the temple precinct, that's where you bring your offering, and that's where you do it. Namely, irvinhu rachmana lekulhu asayot. Namely, that the language of the pasuk lends itself, in this case, that Rabbi Akiva might say, no, it's combined, and therefore, when we say that situation of there, okay, it means one place, and therefore, if it's done inappropriately, only one chatas. But otherwise, Rabbi Akiva might argue differently. Okay, let's go on. Back to a new piece from our Mishnah. Okay, so that case, okay, is now we get to the following. Dinei mamonot danin bayom. Okay, we said that the monetary cases are judged during the day, and they may be concluded at night. That was our point there. All right, mnemonic device, mishpat ma'aneh mate. Minaham mimili, how do we know this? Amar Rabbi Chia bar Papa, he says, a damar kra, based on a pasuk. V'shaftu et ha'am b'chol eight, that you should adjudicate the nation at all times. Okay? If that's the case, tchilat din nami, shouldn't we then be able to begin a case at night and not have to just start the case in the morning? Okay? Kidarabba, as pointed out by Rabba. The Rabba Rami, because Rabba raised a contradiction regarding psukim. K'tiv, in one place it's written, v'shaftuata am b'chol eight, the pasuk we just cited. Right? Uchtiv, and elsewhere it's written, v'haya bayom hanchilo et banav. On that day, when they arranged or gave out the inheritances, okay, the portions of the land to the Haketzad. How then do we deal with this? Yom l'tchilat din, Laila the gamar din, says Rava. The morning is when we need to start the case. At night, we make the case, render the decision. Matnitin deloka Rabbi Meir. If that's the case, then our Mishnah wouldn't be according to Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir teaches the Tanya Haya Rabbi Meir Omer is Matam Laboma. What are we saying here in the pasuk? Al pihem yeh kol riv v'chol nega. Okay, what happens then? And if it's by their mouth, where we decide with arguments and nega, Rabbi Meir is about to make a hekesh for us between the word riv, which would be a case of for a judge, and nega, which would be a situation that the Kohanim would need to be able to observe the status of the person. And let's see what happens. Chima inyan reveal gaim, asks the Gemara. Very good logic. What association is there between arguments, particularly monetary arguments, and whatever, like plague or whatever? Ela makish rivim lenegaim. But what does Rabbi Meir do? He makes a hekesh, an association between the arguments and the skin disease. Ma negaim bayom, the same way regards to leprosy and things like that. We know the Kohen must see it during the day, right? Dichtiv. Why? Because it's written in the pasuk. Ubiyom harot bo, on the day that he sees it. Af rivim bayom. So likewise, the arguments must be discussed during the day. Umanageim shelo besumin. Now, since we made that hekesh, we'll give you another example, says Rabbi Meir. Okay, the same way with regards to leprosy, it cannot be adjudicated by sumin, by those who are blind. Dichtiv l'chol mar'eh einei hakohen. Okay, so he says that. Af rivim, so likewise the monetary arguments, shelo besumin, you can't have blind judges adjudicating the case. Okay, Rabbi Meir. Umakish negaim l'rivim, and therefore he does the opposite also. He makes the association between the leprosy, okay, and the arguments. Marivin shelo bikrovim, the same way regarding arguments, you cannot have relatives act as judges and determine the status. Afnegaim shelo bikrovim, so there too you can't have relatives determine the status of the leprosy in terms of the person. A marivin bishlosha, the same way, and look how far Rabbi Meir is going in this hekesh. Okay, the same way arguments have to be with a court of three, afnegaim bishlosha. So one kohen, according to Rabbi Meir, would not be sufficient. Okay, you'd need three kohanim to look at it. Okay, vadin, and this is a kal v'chomer that he's making. Mimano b'shlosha. If we say that with money you need three, gufo lo kol shekeh, with something that deals with one body, a person's body, how much the more so? Okay, Talmud Lomar. However, our Braita teaches, v'huva el Aharon hakohen o el echad v'gomer. Okay, he can be brought to Aaron or one of his sons. That's what then tells us, no, Rabbi Meir, we don't hold by three Kohanim. We see the Torah says it's sufficient for a single. Okay? Ha lemadet, and therefore you learn, she'afilu kohen echad ro'et ha'negaim, that even one Kohen may examine the illness. Hahu samya dahava b'shavtutei derav Chochanan. And not only that, but now we have a little digression with a story. We just got through saying that Rabbi Meir would say a blind judge, right, cannot render decisions. But we're going to have a masa. Okay, and what do we always learn? A masa always reinforces, either as it's a challenge to what was said, or it reinforces what was said. So what happens? Namely, right? So he says, there was a blind judge, de Rabbi Yochanan, who lived in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yochanan. Dahava da'in dina. He would customarily carry out the judgments. Velo amarle Rabbi Yochanan, velo mide. And Rabbi Yochanan never objected to his role as a judge. Hechi avid hachi. How is it possible that he did that? Va'amar Rabbi Yochanan. Because Rabbi Yochanan says, halacha kistam mishnah. Particularly, if Rabbi Yochanan says that law is like stam mishnah, it means he follows the view of Rabbi Meir. Okay? So how can he not allow that person to adjudicate if Rabbi Meir has already said and shown us his view in terms of that? Tnan, and it's taught then in the Mishnah, Kol hakasher ladun, kasher laha'id. All who are viable, I'll say, to judge are viable to witness. V'yesh kasher laha'ed, and there are those who are suitable to give witness. ve'ein kasher ladun, but they are not valid to judge. Va'amar Rabbi Yochanan, and says Rabbi Yochanan, la'atuye suma be'achat me'inav. So that implies that if the judge is only blind in one eye, he's still viable to judge. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan, stama acharita ashkach. Here we find that Rabbi Yochanan accepts the view, okay, of the Stam Mishnah. Dinei mamonot, danin bayom v'gomrim balayla. And we've said that laws, cases of money are judged, right, during the day and can finish at night. So the point the Gemara is going to ask is, Mai ulume dahai stama mehai stama? What is the superiority of one Stam Mishnah compared to another Stam Mishnah? Okay? Ibayat ema. If you want, I might say, Stama de Rabim adif. That maybe one Stam Mishnah that is accepted by many is preferable. Ve'ibayat ema. Or if you want, I could argue, Mishum de katani la gabe hilchata dedina. Since it's taught in regarding to laws of adjudication, v'Rabbi Meir, and it's Rabbi Meir, Hai v'shaftu et ha'am b'chol eight. This fact that the pasuk says you judge at all times, Mai darish be. How then does he interpret it? Right? Rabbi, he says, le'etuye yom ha'me'unan. Rabbi Meir includes the fact that you could carry out a case on a cloudy day. Ditnan. Why? Ein ro'in et hanegaim shachrit ubein ha'aravim. We do not permit the Kohen to examine the leprosy, whatever, in the morning, okay, or bein ha'aravim, or at twilight, okay, v'lo b'toch habayit, and not inside a house, v'lo b'yom ha'mu'unan, and not on a cloudy day, mipnei shekaheh nir'eit aza. Why? Because something dull may appear as bright. V'lo b'tzaharayim, and not in the middle of the afternoon, mipnei she'aza nir'eit kaheh. Why? Because then what's bright may appear as dull. V'Rabbi Meir, and according to Rabbi Meir, Hai b'yom hanchilo et banav. This other pasuk, excuse me, that says the day that we arrange the inheritance of the nations. My avidle, what does he do with that? Hahumi bayele, he needs the following, l'kitatanya, as taught Rabba bar Hanina, Kame de Rav Nachman, before Rav Nachman, V'haya bayom hanchilo et banav, and based on that pasuk, then, bayom atam apil nachalot, during the day you will cast the lots, so to speak, v'i atam apil nachalot balayla, but you don't cast the lots at night. Amarle, but he said to him, Elame ata man de biyamama. But then, if that's the case, one who happens to be who dies during the day, yarton le bane, okay, his sons inherit. Uman de balelia, but one who dies at night, lo yarton le bane, his sons are not going to inherit him. Okay, dilma din nachalot ka'amarta. Maybe we were talking specifically about the lottery for land. The Tanya, as it was taught, V'haital Avnei Yisrael l'chukat mishpat, because that was to be done like a kind of court case. Okay, namely, Ora'a kol parsha kula, and this was then taught, okay, throughout the entire section, parsha, lihiyodin, to be like a case of court. Kid de Rav Yehuda, as was said by Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, who said, Shlosha nichnasu, right? Levaker et hachola. When three entered to visit a person who was deathly ill, and the intent was the question about writing a will here. Ratsu kodvin, ratsu osin din. If they choose, these three can write the will, but if they can then turn themselves into the judges and determine to carry out the judgment of what the will is saying. Shnayim kodvin, but there are only two come in to visit the sick person who's deathly ill and is looking to write a will. Ve'eno sin din. They can only be witnesses, but they can't act as a base din. Va'amar Rav Chisda, but Rav Chisda has taught, lo shanu ela bayom. They taught this only regarding the daytime. Aval balayla, but at night, kovin, they could write. Ve'eno sin din, and they cannot carry out, execute the act of judgment, what the will is saying. Mishum dahavu leho edin. Then, because they were simply acting as witnesses, ve'en ed ne'esed dayan, and a witness at that point cannot become judge. Marle en hachika amina. Yes, he says, that's exactly what I was meaning to say. And we finish up a little bit. Dinei nifashot danin bayom. We indicated that capital cases had to be decided and adjudicated during the day. Mina hanimili. And what's the basis of this, asks the Gemara. Amar Rav Simi Barchia, Amar Kra. He argues by a pasuk. Vihuka otam lashem neged hashemesh. It says they were hung, okay, I was going to say in the presence of Hashem, in this case, opposite the sun. In other words, right? Right? In other words, that means it was during the day. Okay? Amar Rabbi Chisda, says Rav Chisda, Minayin lahuka'ah shehit tliya. How do we know that the language of the word hoka'ah implies hanging? Right? Dichtiv, as it's written elsewhere, v'hoka'anum l'Hashem begiv'at Shaul l'chir Hashem. Okay, that was when the situation was such that Saul's sons were hung. Okay, in that case, Gemara is going to pick up tomorrow and go into that story in a little bit more detail. V'tikach v'tzcha bataya, that the sak v'tihela, etc., etc., etc. So we'll pick it up tomorrow on the top of Lamed. Okay, just remind everyone that tonight is again at the Sam Coleman book review. Rabbi Yigal Kornblum is going to be speaking on the book about the life of Rabbi Meir Lau.
When?
That's tonight
8 o'clock.
at 8 o'clock.
Gentlemen, is anyone using my
2 o'clock meeting of what?
2 o'clock about the search?
2 o'clock is the town hall meeting with the search committee.